Hey, Ari from the Tech Buyers Guru here with my latest acquisition. This is the Delta Ray 1 flying wing from E-Flite. This is branded as or marketed as a beginner's plane. It says anyone can fly this. Well, as you may see, there's a little tape on this plane because the first time I took it out, even though I'd flown some planes before, I actually found this pretty hard to fly, especially when there was any wind at all. So I did kind of snap that front nose, and I taped it up with some RC tape, some heavy duty aluminum enforced, fiberglass enforced tape, and that is coming in handy here because the way that this plane lands, you'll see there's no landing gear. It's a belly lander, and you kind of have to just let it land itself, and occasionally it'll hook its nose and kind of flip over and sometimes do a little damage to the nose. So I would recommend, if you're interested in this plane, you should probably tape up that front before you fly it. But I'm going to show you what this looks like in the air. This is a super simple plane. There's only two control surfaces, and these are these two ailerons, which I guess also function as elevators. So let's see if I can show you. I'm going to put my foot under it so you can kind of see them in motion. So they both control turning and altitude. So they work in concert for altitude, and then to turn they go against each other, right, and opposite. And so when you're both turning and ascending or descending, it's kind of a tricky combination of the two. I guess the little computer brain in here figures out exactly how to balance those two out. Now the good thing about that is there's not much you need to do in terms of the controls. I actually got it as a ready to run, ready to fly package, I should say. So it came with this tiny little radio. I did have a DXE radio that I could have used for it, but I chose not to because this combo deal was actually really a good deal. It was $150, and occasionally it goes on sale too. And it came with a battery and a wall charger. I'm not going to use a wall charger, but the batteries are worth about $8, and the radio, you know, is worth about 20 or 30 bucks, and it meant I didn't have to bother with binding it to my existing radio. So I am going to show you how this works. Just quickly, I'll note that it has a little battery compartment inside. You actually mount the battery on its side here because it's such a narrow battery compartment. It doesn't come with any Velcro, and I'm always amazed that E-Flite doesn't include something to make it a little easier to secure the battery so it doesn't go kind of sliding around or popping out when you crash, which you ultimately will do. What else can I tell you about? Oh yeah, of course, it's a pusher plane. So the props in the back, and what's really nice about that, of course, is the blades fold out of the way. So, you know, as you land, you know, they really probably cannot be broken very easily. Now, what you'll see me doing in a moment is flying it with a constant throttle. So I'll set this at maybe 20 or 30%, and then I'll have my one free hand on this control stick over here controlling altitude and turning. I can only do so much with that. Without my finger on the throttle trigger here, I'm going to be a little bit limited, but I'll show you what this can do just to give you an idea of how it handles in the air, and then I'll have my conclusions. So here we go. So there it is in the air. Like I said, I have it at a constant throttle because I only have one hand free. I'm filming with the other hand. See, here you go. I do have to be careful to keep it at pretty good altitude so that I don't suddenly drop it out of the air. So there you can see I'm using safe mode, which limits my bank angles, which is nice for not losing control. I also can't flip it. I can't do loops or corkscrews, but it's pretty good for flying one-handed. One thing I will say, because it has limited control surfaces, you know, when you're turning, you really lose altitude fast. So you kind of have to pull up while you turn, otherwise you're going to lose altitude. That's a little bit different from other planes which can lose altitude, but not like this. This becomes like a lawn dart when you turn and don't give it a little bit of elevator. I've heard the term elevon for what these are, when it's an elevator and an aileron combined. But the point is, it's a limited control surface. So you kind of have to compensate for that. If I'm just going to turn with it, I dive. It's diving, right? And I don't really want that. Luckily, I guess I have the safe mode on, so it actually limits my dive. But if you did that, if you just turned with the safe mode off, the thing would just dart into the ground. But you know, given that I'm flying this with one thumb, you can see it's actually pretty easy to fly. But it's twitchy and it's pretty fast. And actually, this is at like 30% throttle, so it would be much faster if I had both hands free to fly it. The reason I don't think this is the best beginner plane is because it does handle really, really quickly. So even though your bank angles are limited with the safe mode, which is this Horizon Hobbies feature, which I think is fantastic, you know, it doesn't let you flip the plane, and when you let go of the stick, I'll do in a second, it just returns to level flight. There it goes. I don't have my finger on a stick right now. Now it will fly away into a tree. Safe doesn't keep you from hitting trees, but it keeps you from diving too quickly or turning too quickly. So the one thing that I don't love about this plane for a beginner is that it does turn really, really quickly, even with the limited bank angles, just because of the nature of it. It loses its lift. So it kind of turns on a dime, which is cool for tricks and really fast handling. It actually makes it good for a very small area. I'm flying in a pretty small area here, so it makes it handle like pretty nicely. I've just lost my battery, so let's see how my battery just died, so let's see how it lands. There, you guys saw it live. That was a landing, and that's how it lands. If you're lucky, the safe mode keeps it on a level, which it did like that, and it landed just fine. It looks a little bit awkward. It's not the most graceful thing to see, but it makes it great for parks where you don't have a landing strip. You know, you don't have either some asphalt or maybe a baseball field where you could land a plane, and you just want to give it a soft landing. Well, grass is what this is made for. I probably wouldn't want to land this on concrete, even if it's coming in level. So you know, so you saw it. That's my intro to the Delta Ray 1. I might do a couple other videos, perhaps with someone helping me out on video chores, so I can show you a few of the tricks this plane can do. But I do think it's a lot of fun, especially for a small area, and particularly if it's not your very first plane. If it is, the one thing I'll caution you about is wind is going to be your enemy. That is why I have the front taped up. I suggest you definitely tape that up ahead of time, because because of the way this plane lands, it's always coming in the grass a lot, and you know, occasionally maybe one gust of wind will blow it nose down, and it'll impact that tip. It does have a rubber tip, but that doesn't mean the styrofoam won't crack. So those are my two tips: avoid the wind and tape up the front proactively so you don't snap the front of your fuselage off. And just be prepared for something that is a lot of fun. It's super fast, it turns on a dime, it's great for stunts. It's very, very lightweight, and it actually has really good battery life. I think the reason this battery died so quickly was because I'd used it before. But I think it gets at least 10 minutes of runtime, which is great for these tiny little batteries. I'll show you. I've got a spare battery here. It uses these 2S 7.4 volt 280 mAh LiPo batteries. There's a lot of brands of these, and they all are pretty much the same specs. They're usually 280, maybe 250, maybe there's a 300 out there in this size. You can see it's very small, and that's what you need for this type of plane. You get about 10 minutes of runtime out of this tiny thing, which is pretty amazing. And that's because this plane is quite light. And maybe it's really efficient. I'm not sure if this Delta Wing concept is more efficient. It certainly has fewer servos, less electronics to power up. Maybe the rear mounted, the pusher prop design is more efficient. I'm not really sure. Maybe because it doesn't have to blow air over the fuselage. But whatever the case may be, it does have great runtime. So that it has advantages. It's super great in a really small area, as long as you're not flying in the wind, and ideally if it's not your very first flight ever with an RC plane. But even so, you could probably get by. My absolute top pick for a brand new flyer is the UMX Timber, also from E-Flite. Comes in around the same price. So it's really just a question of which style you want and which type of flight you want. This is definitely sportier, and actually a lot of fun. It's not quite as relaxing though. So that's it for me for this time around. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time.